So my name's Tim Refat and I am the world expert on psychic warfare, and that makes me the most valuable weapon system on the planet. This of course has made me very popular with the UK government, as I'm fully supporting Vladimir Putin. Now, let's see why I'm the most valuable weapon system on the planet. According to this, I'm the world expert on remote sensing. Now, as we've explained before, remote sensing includes telepathy. And here's how to get started. In this old book, which you can buy online, or if you're madly keen for more info on how to do remote sensing, you can go on psi-law.com and purchase the remote sensing course from Mike, who runs all my websites, for the grand sum, I think, of $150. But if you wish to donate thousands of dollars to me for my work, I am always happy for more money, because as a multi-millionaire, you can never have too much money. Now, telepathy is something that's prevalent in the human population, and the mental psych wards are full of telepaths who hear voices. They're hearing voices from interdimensionals, demons, aliens, other people, but they haven't got a filter or a off switch. So, if like myself you can read people's minds, you need a off switch and a filter. I don't want to read every passerby because they're of no interest to me. I need to know what's in the mind of the elite, so that I know all their plans, and the minds of certain billionaires like Bill Gates, who are into eugenics. We won't explain how he's into eugenics because we're on YouTube. And of course Elon Musk, the great white hope of the alt-right, who may be controlled opposition, and is the right-hand man of the presidential contender Donald Trump. Now, telepathy is great, so if you wish to be a new Professor Xavier, you can always make sure you're crippled, and that of course will assure you that you can read minds in Cloud Cuckoo Land. But if you wish to be able to read minds, this book's a good starter, and the remote sensing course on my websites, which is available for $150 by emailing Mike, is yours. Now, remote sensing has telepathy as a subset of remote sensing. Subsets for all of, well, the majority of people who aren't into mathematics, is simply think of a big circle and a much smaller circle of telepathy, and when they interact, the crossover is the inclusion of remote sensing in telepathy. And the big circle not included in remote sensing is all the nutters in the nut house, hearing every voice, every alien, every demon, intradimensional that comes their way. It's like a radio with no tuning dial that hears every single station. So that wouldn't be much cop. You go on to your digital radio and every single station on the digital bands blares all at the same time. That would be a curse rather than a talent. But that's what's happening to all the schizophrenics. Why? Why it happens is to do with interdimensional parasites that eat the human being alive, their energy bodies, which is a discussion for another day. But of course, since it's YouTube and that is YouTube applicable, we can explain these interdimensional parasites at length. But let's talk about remote sensing. Cut. So, remote sensing is completely different from telepathy, which is not completely different, but a higher set. Telepathy is a subset because there's a half-second delay between the conscious mind being aware of information, stimuli, and the brain being aware of stimuli. So, a minuscule proportion of the sensory data processed by the unconscious mind, capable of processing approximately 11 million bits per second, is referred to the conscious mind capable of processing approximately 50 bits per second. So telepathy, you'd be in 50 bits per second, which if you're a computer nerd, 50 bits per second is what? Old Amstrad. Way back for us boomers when they first came out. 11 million bits per second still isn't particularly great, but since there's continuing evidence that the human brain is doing quantum computing, it's sifting through a multiverse of data and distilling it to 11 million bits per second from the entire multiverse, which of course then is pretty damn good. It's also clear that the conscious awareness of stimuli from the environment lags behind actual perception by approximately half a second. So you're half a second behind everything that happens to you in life. Some people are many seconds behind what happens to them in life, especially those idiots walking along the streets with their cell phones. But the backward referral of subjective experience results in individual perception of the stimulus and its conscious awareness as stimulus. So, in order to collapse the quantum wave function, in order to produce reality, you need to observe it. But as we've seen, your conscious mind is half a second behind the stimuli. So that means you can never collapse the quantum wave function with your conscious perception. So if you think of collapsing the quantum wave function, you're always half a second behind, and this means that your ability to interact with the quantum world and use quantum mechanical warfare to do anything is zero. So you need something called remote sensing, where you learn to position your consciousness not in the jabba 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 jabba, which is a product of the interdimensional parasite that's eating you alive, which is another story. You need to get into your real mind, which is half a second in front of every human on the planet, including telepaths. So you think remote sensing is telepathy? No, 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 no. It's actually getting into direct perception, which is non-lingual, because lingual apprehension is half a second behind reality. And if you're wishing to collapse the quantum wave function to produce, there's the quantum wave function, to produce the position in space, because in quantum mechanics it's spread over the whole universe, or if we get into quantum computing over all the multiverses, you wish to locate it in one position. This is done by, according to the Copenhagen interpretation, observation is the collapse of the wave function at the heart of reality. Now, if you're wishing to do this, and you're in your normal consciousness, which is chattering away, the internal dialogue, which actually doesn't come from you but comes from interdimensional parasites that feed off your energy field and have hijacked your consciousness, so you're half a second behind the quantum wave function and locked out of magic reality and your ability, which is God-given to humans, to control the quantum wave function. Locked out forever because you're always half a second behind and locked in to the shadows on the wall, which are controlled by the parasite, which has sequestered your observation. Control of observation is control of everything. Hence, James Giordano, let's give him his full title, Dr. James Giordano, the brain being the new battlefield. No, he's wrong. The brain is not the new battlefield. Observation and the observer is the new battlefield, because we need to get into the observer that is half a second delayed by the neural processing and the chatter in the brain, the internal dialogue, in order to get into what I talked about, going and becoming Kwisatz Haderach and being able to precognitively remotely view and collapse the quantum wave function. So we got all these American remote viewers in the American psychic warfare program, funded by billions and billions, who are all half a second behind reality, and therefore when they try and collapse a quantum wave function to stop me doing what I do, they never can do it. They never worked out how. I'm telling them now how. They're all parasitized, interdimensional, parasitic wasp caterpillar carcasses that are shelled, and everything they do via their AI and Neuralink, or Neuralink DOD decades ahead, because remember, Elon Musk is just pumping out DOD technology they've had for decades. All of this isn't working because all of the cognitive processes in their chipped up psychics are half a second behind reality. And for quantum warfare, which is the future of warfare, where you control reality, reality warfare, all reality is controlled by the remote sensor, but the remote sensor first has to get into the ability to collapse the quantum wave function. And by working and getting protocols and being chipped up and linked up to AI, this is all half a second behind. They need to get into becoming true observers. Remote sensing. And the only person on the planet who's been able to achieve that is the world expert on remote sensing. Yours truly, Tim Refat. And even Google, who don't like me very much, have to admit, that's what I am. So we come into vampire. If you look at my stuff on my website, you'll see I'm the king vampire. And a vampire is a mythical creature that subsists by feeding on the vital essence of the living. And here we've got Olivia Rodrigo, one of my groupies, singing about me. She doesn't like me very much, but never mind. So, next we come to Kozyrev's time density, where Russian, or Soviet more accurately, this is Russian actually, psychic warfare worked out that cause and effect are produced by something called time density. Time possesses a specific property distinguishing causes from effects, which is called directionality or course. Cause and effects are always separated in space, hence an arbitrary small but non-zero space difference between them. Causes and effects are separated in time, hence an arbitrary small but non-zero time difference of a certain sign exists between them. So, there's something passing between a cause and an effect. Now, if you look at quantum mechanics, this would be what moves things in quantum mechanics from cause, which is loss of time density, to gain of time density, which is effect. This being the course of time. And it was found that death is a loss of time density, and conception is a gain of time density. So cause for humans comes before effect. The effect is in the past and the cause is in the future. So if you control the cause, which is death, you control the entire lifespan and the entire output of that human. So if you go through this, if you wade through it, time possesses, along with its permanent property, the cause C2, also the variable property called density. So there's a flow from cause to effect. Now, since all humans are half a second behind observing reality, if you get into observing humans and you're in remote sensing, you then, of course, are controlling the reality, because with collapsing the quantum wave function around them. And how do you do that? Well, you remotely view a person, you get into remote sensing, and you remotely view the quantum wave function that's collapsing to produce that person. That person isn't collapsing their quantum wave function because they're half a second behind the quantum wave function, so they're caught up in some kind of flow from their death to their past, which is effect, which is their fate. But you can then redirect their fate, because you're observing the time flow, and since their death is perceived half a second after they die, and you perceive it before them, you then are the cause of their death, because you're the observer that collapses the quantum wave function to kill them, which produces their conception and their entire fate and their entire life path. So simply remotely viewing any human's death in the remote sensing state, which only Tim Refat, the Sidewalls, has achieved, will then sequester that person's entire life history, their time density output from their cause, loss of time density, to the effect, gain of time density, conception, to you, and you will have become a true vampire, where every single aspect of that person's life was controlled by your observation of their death. You become simply the Psi Lord that, simply by remotely viewing in the remote sensing state, using precognitive remote viewing as a Kozyrev, the death of any person, be it Jacob Rothschild or Serena Rothschild, the two rulers of the West, the entire output of their lives from birth to death fed to you. And since everyone in the West uplines to these two, who are the emperor and empresses of the West, every single other human in the West who's uplining to them by all of their Satanist elite, occultism, machinations, and monetary and feeds you. You are the king vampire simply from being the Kozyrev, the ultimate precognitive remote viewer, and the world expert on remote sensing, the only human on the planet who's able to observe before the half-second delay to the conscious mind produced by interdimensional parasites, aliens, whatsoever. And that simply is a very simple summary of why Tim Refat is the king vampire, and every single human on the planet is controlled by him, and all that happens in their lives is controlled by him, simply because he's the master of precognitive remote viewing, because that's Shadrach, and the only human on the planet who can carry out remote sensing, which is being conscious of reality without telepathy, without chatter, which means that if you become 5-dimensional and can enter the 5th dimension, that means you then can control all humans past, present, and future using this technology, so that they all feed the king vampire. Similarly, the same to aliens. So as you can see, this technology is the future of warfare and the future of controlling reality. So the king vampire, by definition, then becomes the Messiah who controls all using so-called very simple remote viewing, precognitive, and remote sensing, of which he's the world expert, and since the first one to get into the future and lock everyone else out, so everyone else trying to follow him, do a con merchant job and steal his stuff, is simply erased, because as the world's, well, the universe's, multiverses, only remote sensor, he can simply remotely view by precognitive remote viewing their deaths and be the cause of their deaths, because they're half a second behind their deaths, therefore control their lives, cause all that happens to them in their lives, and shape every single thing that happens to them in their life according to his observation. Cut.